Hi, my name is Kevin Polke, and I am the founder and executive director of Shatter Our Silence. We have talked numerous times about this idea of the continuum and of being able to identify what are the risk factors that lead to someone that in that darkness, and then what we can do to find light or find hope in the midst of that darkness. We've talked about the factors that lead to someone having a predisposition to being in that darkness, but today I want to talk about what are those warning signs when someone is maybe in that space. They're at the farther end of that continuum and they are struggling. How will you know? And so you'll know based upon not only what they do, but what they say. And again, this is not going to be just a checklist that we're looking at. These are indicators. There's different languages that may be utilized. But the first warning sign that someone is in this darkness and that something's going on with them and that we have to go further into it and ask more questions and try to do this in a caring, empathetic way is if someone is talking about the easy, not want to be here anymore. Seems to be the obvious. And they may say that in a handful of different ways. They may say that in that they would rather just not wake up tomorrow morning, or if they just seem somehow disappeared, or that somehow magically they would get some type of illness, or they could say that so-and-so who just recently died in a car accident, either in someone in their own circle or someone that may be out through media, that they died and they refer to them as being a lucky one. That would be an indicator something's going on. I want to know more about what they're thinking and more about that story that they're telling themselves. Another sign would be if they have this sense of feeling trapped, that they don't think things will ever change. If an individual is enduring physical pain and then the emotional distress of that physical pain, they don't feel like it'll ever get better. Or if they're in a situation where there's sexual abuse happening or domestic violence happening, and they don't feel that they can get out of those circumstances, and they feel trapped. Wanting to get to know more about what do they mean by that? What are they thinking as they're feeling that their circumstance won't ever change and they feel trapped? That this idea that they don't think that there's any point of living, that there's no reason to live, would be another warning sign. They may use language such as that my parents or my friends would be better off, or I'm a burden to them. And this type of language is another way of raising our awareness that we need to ask more questions about what do they mean. I would encourage people not to just discount that or minimize it. Oh, of course people care about you and they would be hurt. Yes, that may be true, but I want to know more about what is the reason that person is thinking that. What is the story that they're telling themselves when they say that they are a burden, or that they that their loved ones or friends would be better off if they weren't there. This idea that individuals are having significant changes in behavior. Now, depending on the age, we may think this is just a normal developmental time period of their life. But what I'm referring to is that someone who's normally, let's say, social or extroverted, always interacting, and now that they're not. And this has been going on consistently for more than 2 weeks. So for 14 to 21 days in a row, they are consistently in a different mood or a different behavioral state than their baseline or their normal. Imagine that if your baseline temperature is 98.5, 98.6, and you now for the last 21 days have been running a low-grade fever of 100.2, and that lasts for 21 days, I would assume all of us would know that we need to go to the doctor and find out what's going on. If it's just going on for one day, we may not think anything of it. We think we have a bug or something. Similar to emotional health. If we are off our baseline for 14 to 21 days straight, we need to seek out some assistance. that many times when someone is in this darkness and they're struggling, they're going to start trying to somehow modify or manage their thinking or their feelings. And so you may see an increase in the use of mood-altering chemicals, alcohol or drugs, or utilizing food to try to manage how they feel. You may see individuals isolating, and that may be one of the things that you see that is different than their baseline, is this isolation. Now, I know as we've gone through this, the pandemic, that social isolation has, for some, in itself been a factor in this idea of loneliness and internalizing this loneliness, regardless if there's people around you or not, has been another indicator or a warning sign that something's going on, and we want to move toward that person and ask them about what is happening. That there's these recent stressors that they may be experiencing. It may be it may be a change in jobs. It may be an unplanned pregnancy. It may be failing a class, or not getting into a particular school, or not being able to make a particular team, or some type of activity. And that these recent stressors are things that are building on top of each other that may be tipping points of why this person is more vulnerable at this time. And then the last thing that we want to be aware of as a warning sign is some instability within the family, or instability within interpersonal relationships. Almost always a tipping point for an individual to be suicidal is some type of relationship instability. I want to be clear that I'm not saying that that's the cause of why someone is suicidal. It is just usually the tipping point of why someone may become suicidal or act on that suicidal thinking. In all these situations, there's a complex, a multiple factors, multiple things that are going on for someone to be in that darkness and be suicidal. But that tipping point, a breakup, an argument with a coach, being released from a job, being released from a sports team, disappointing, or they perceive that they've disappointed someone. These are all things that may cause a person to who's already had other risk factors going on to slip into that darkness. So I talk about this idea that, well, if I'm a significant other of someone and we've been going out for a while, and I'm in the process of breaking up with them, and they then say, if you break up with me, then I'm going to hurt myself, I'm going to take my own life. Usually in this particular case, people are afraid of this, and I guess this is what I'm asking you to do in this particular case. You still have the right to end that relationship because you don't want to be in that relationship anymore, and I think you need to continue following through with that. As you follow through with that breaking up, make sure, if that is what your former significant other is saying, make sure that you reach out to their parents, make sure you reach out to their other family members or friends, and let them know what they've been saying to you so that they can get help. You don't necessarily need to be in that relationship, but I don't want you to have the regret that someone acted impulsively on that breakup. You're right. They're going to be upset, and they're going to be angry at you for contacting their family members saying that they were suicidal because of the breakup. But I'd much rather have them be angry with you than you go into their funeral and they're not able to be angry with you. Again, all these different warning signs that we talked about today are then positioning you to be able to act, ask more about what is going on, what is the story that they're telling themselves. Do that in a caring, empathetic way, and then make sure that you have the courage to follow through and tell someone to get them in a safe space.